Okay, let's dive into this fantastic book, The Psychology of Money. It all kicks off with a really fascinating puzzle. How is it that some people with zero financial training end up incredibly wealthy, while some of the smartest, most educated experts in finance go totally broke? Well, the answer has almost nothing to do with how smart you are. And this is the perfect example. On one hand, you've got Ronald Reed, a janitor who quietly built an $8 million fortune. On the other, Richard Fuscone, a Harvard MBA and finance executive who went bankrupt. I mean, how does that even happen? It seems to defy all logic, right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. So, what's the big idea here? It really boils down to this one powerful sentence. Doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. At the end of the day, it's not about the complex spreadsheets you can build. It's about your habits and the stories you tell yourself about money. All right, so first things first, let's just go ahead and smash a huge myth about money. This idea that we make all our financial decisions based on pure, cold logic. The truth? Well, it's a whole lot more personal than that. This brings us to a powerful concept the book calls no one's crazy. Think about it. Your personal experiences with money are this tiny microscopic sliver of what's happened in the financial world. But that tiny sliver makes up like 80% of how you think the world works. We're all just trying to navigate using our own very limited personal maps. Let's make this super concrete. So if you were born in 1970, you would have watched the stock market go up nearly 10 times during your teens and 20s. To you, stocks probably seem like an amazing, can't-miss way to build wealth. But what if you were born just 20 years earlier, in 1950? The market basically went nowhere for your entire youth. Your worldview would be totally different. You'd think, stocks? It's a coin flip. Neither one of you is crazy. You just grow up in completely different financial worlds. And it's the exact same story with something like inflation. If you were born in the 60s, you saw prices triple, making you super worried about your money losing value. But if you were born in the 90s, you've barely ever had to think about it. See, these aren't just different opinions, they're different, deeply felt realities that shape every single financial choice you make. So the big takeaway here is this. What seems absolutely bonkers to you, like buying a lottery ticket or keeping all your money in cash, might make perfect sense to someone else based on their life. This is why a one-size-fits-all approach to finance just doesn't work, and it's why having a little empathy might just be the most underrated financial skill there is. Okay, so now that we get that we're all seeing the world through our own unique lens, let's talk about the two biggest, deadliest psychological traps in finance: completely misunderstanding the role of luck and that endless, dangerous pursuit of more. You know, luck and risk are really just two sides of the very same coin. Take Bill Gates. He had an absolutely 1 in a million stroke of luck. He got to go to one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer back in 1968. Amazing, right? But his best friend, Ken Evans, was just as brilliant. And he suffered a 1 in a million risk. He tragically died in a mountaineering accident before they even graduated. It's such a sobering reminder that our success is never, ever 100% due to our own efforts. And all this leads to a really grounding principle. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. When you see some incredible success story or a devastating failure, you've always got to remember to factor in those powerful invisible forces of luck and risk. All right, now for that second trap. And this one is maybe the most dangerous of all. Having no sense of enough. I mean, look at Rajat Gupta and Bernie Madoff. Gupta was already worth $100 million. Madoff had a hugely successful, totally legitimate business. They had it all. And yet they risked everything, their freedom, their legacy, all of it, for more. Why? Because for them, the goalpost just kept on moving. And this is exactly why it's so dangerous. It is a game you literally cannot win. The rookie athlete making $500,000 a year feels poor standing next to his superstar teammate making $36 million. But then, that superstar feels poor next to a top hedge fund manager making $340 million, and that manager feels poor next to Warren Buffett, who probably feels poor next to Jeff Bezos. The ceiling of social comparison is so high, nobody ever actually reaches it. The only real way to win is to refuse to play the game. Okay, that's a lot about the pitfalls, but what about the solution? What are the real keys to building a fortune? Well, the book argues it really comes down to two surprisingly simple but incredibly powerful ideas. First step, Warren Buffett. We all think of him as this legendary investing genius, right? And yeah, he is. But his real secret weapon, his superpower, it's not just picking good stocks, it's time. The man started investing when he was 10 years old. His real skill is just sticking around. Okay, get ready for this number because it's absolutely mind-blowing. Of Warren Buffett's nearly $85 billion net worth, $81.5 billion of it came after he was old enough to collect Social Security. Just let that sink in for a second. His fortune isn't really from getting incredible returns, it's from getting pretty good returns compounded over nearly 80 years. This is what the book calls confounding compounding. The real magic isn't in earning spectacular returns that you can't repeat. Nope, it's about earning pretty good, solid returns that you can stick with for the longest possible time. Consistency will always, always beat short-term intensity. Okay, and here is the second crucial key to wealth. Getting rich and staying wealthy are two completely different skills. To get rich, you often need to be an optimist, take some risks, put yourself out there. But to stay rich, you kind of need the opposite. You need humility and a healthy dose of paranoia that it could all disappear tomorrow. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? More than I want big returns, I want to be financially unbreakable. The goal isn't just to win. The real goal is to survive. You have to stay in the game long enough to let that compounding do its thing. Getting wiped out to zero is not an option. So here it is, the unbeatable mindset in a nutshell. You need to be optimistic about the long-term future, believing that things will generally get better over decades. But at the same time, you have to be paranoid about the short term, totally focused on surviving all the bumps and crises that will try to knock you out of the game along the way. And that's really what it all boils down to. It's not about finding some complex strategy. It's about simple, repeatable behaviors. So I'll just leave you with this question. Based on everything we've just talked about, what is one simple thing you can do today to make your own financial life just a little bit more unbreakable? Okay, let's dive into this fantastic book, The